My daughter texted during the divorce, "Mom says you never loved us." I replied, "That's her opinion." Then I showed the court my ex-wife's lavish spending from the kids' trust fund. My ex was frantically texting apologies when her alimony demands were slashed. Original post: I, 40M, Timothy, am staring at my phone, and for the first time in months, I don't feel that immediate gut punch of dread. Maybe it's the calm after the storm. Or maybe it's just the quiet satisfaction of justice, served cold. It all started about a year ago. My wife of 20 years, Sandra, 46F, decided she wanted a divorce. No big blow-up, no screaming matches, just a quiet, "I'm not happy, Timothy. I want more." More being the operative word, as I'd soon discover. Her taste for the finer things had always been apparent, often pushing our budget despite my comfortable salary as a senior project engineer in a specialized field, a source of many unspoken tensions. We agreed to keep things civil for the kids, Ashley 17F and Ronald 15M. That was my priority. Sandra moved into a rental, and we started the tedious process of lawyers and paperwork. I thought we were handling it like adults. I was wrong. The first real sign of trouble came about 3 months in. Ashley, my usually sweet-natured girl, started acting distant. Then the texts started. Little jabs here and there. "Mom says you're being difficult about the settlement. Mom says you're trying to hide money." I tried to reassure her, telling her that divorce is complicated, that her mom and I just had different ideas about fairness. Then came the text that really twisted the knife. "Ashley, Mom says you never loved us, that you only ever cared about your work." My fingers actually trembled replying to that one. Me, "That's her opinion, sweetie. My love for you and Ronald has never been a question. I'm sorry she's putting you in the middle." I knew Sandra was bitter. She had a lifestyle she was accustomed to, one she clearly felt entitled to keep. But I hadn't realized she'd stooped to poisoning the kids against me. It was a low blow, even for her. Her alimony demands were through the roof. She wanted the house, which was mostly paid off thanks to an inheritance from my side, a significant chunk of my retirement, and spousal support that would have essentially maintained her lavish spending habits indefinitely. Her lawyer, a real shark named Mr. Edward, was aggressive, painting me as a stingy husband trying to leave Sandra destitute. It was during discovery that my lawyer, a sharp woman named Miss Dorothy, suggested we look into all financial accounts, including the kids' trust funds. These were funds my parents had set up for their education when they were born. Decent starting sums that had been invested and had grown steadily over the years. By my last informal check, a couple of years back, they were quite healthy. Certainly enough to cover a good portion of university fees for both. Sandra and I were trustees, but she'd largely handled the paperwork and statements for them, citing it as mother's intuition for their future. And that's when we found it. Sandra, over the past 2 years, hadn't just been spending our money. She'd been systematically dipping into Ashley's and Ronald's trust funds. Not huge lump sums, but a steady, insidious drain. A few hundred here for a spa day, 1,000 there for a weekend getaway with friends I never met. Designer handbags, including an Amour Paris piece for $2,800 that I now recalled her showing off, and salon treatments that easily topped my car payment. And the absolute gut-wrencher? A $500 charge at a very expensive restaurant on Ronald's 14th birthday. A dinner he wasn't even at because he was with me, and she'd claimed she was too upset to celebrate that year. It totaled nearly $18,000 from her own children's education funds. My first emotion wasn't even anger. It was this cold, heavy sadness. How could she? I felt a brief moment of intense pain, a vulnerability that almost buckled me. This wasn't just about money. This was about trust, about motherhood, about the future I thought we were both protecting for our children. Then the calm settled in. The strategic part of my engineer brain took over. Miss Dorothy was, to put it mildly, appalled and professionally focused. "Timothy," she said, her voice tight, "this is a significant development, a game changer." We kept it quiet. Let Sandra and Mr. Edward continue their aggressive posturing. Let them think they had me on the ropes. The next court date for alimony and asset division was set. We were ready. Update 1. It's been 3 weeks since we uncovered Sandra's creative accounting with the kids' trust funds. The court date is next Tuesday. I'm a wreck of nerves, but also strangely resolute. Miss Dorothy has been a rock. Sandra, meanwhile, has been ramping up her entitlement. She actually had Mr. Edward send a letter demanding I pay for Ashley's upcoming school trip to Europe, a trip Sandra had grandly promised Ashley without consulting me, naturally. The cost? A cool $6,000. The letter implied I was a deadbeat dad if I refused. This was on top of her already insane alimony demands. Then, her sister, Kimberly, 50F, called me. Kimberly has always been Sandra's chief enabler. Kimberly, Timothy, you need to do the right thing. Sandra is falling apart. This divorce is destroying her. And Ashley will be devastated if she can't go on this trip. Sandra already told all her friends Ashley was going. Kimberly, Sandra's financial situation is one she's actively creating, and promising Ashley a $6,000 trip without discussing it with the person you expect to pay for it is bold. She just wants what's best for the children. You're being so cold. She gave you the best years of her life. And I provided a very comfortable life for her, Kimberly. Her current demands are beyond unreasonable, and frankly, her actions regarding the children are deeply concerning. She would never hurt those children. How dare you? Click. Yeah, that went well. The narrative is clearly that I'm the villain. Then, dirty trick number 1. Sandra filed a motion for emergency interim support, claiming I'd cut her off. And she couldn't afford basic necessities. This despite the fact I was still paying the mortgage on the fairly expensive rental, around $3,200 a month, she'd chosen, as per our initial temporary agreement, and had been giving her a reasonable monthly sum for expenses, which she apparently blew through. She even attached photos of a sparsely stocked fridge to the court documents. Theatrics in a high-end rental. Miss Dorothy just smiled grimly when she saw it. Let her, she said, it all contributes to the overall picture. The worst part is Ashley. She's been even more withdrawn. Sandra is clearly feeding her a constant stream of poison. Ronald is a bit more resilient, or maybe just better at hiding it, but I can see the confusion in his eyes. He asked me the other day, Dad, are we going to be poor? Gutted me. I just told him, never, son. You and Ashley will always be taken care of. Always. I haven't breathed a word about the trust fund to the kids. That's for the court to reveal. And for Sandra to explain. If she even can. My hands are clammy just thinking about Tuesday. This isn't just about money. It's about protecting my kids, their future, and frankly, my own sanity. Sandra wanted more. She's about to get a whole lot less than she bargained for. Update 2. Today was the day. I barely slept last night. Walked into that courtroom feeling like I was about to face a firing squad. But Ms. Dorothy was a fortress of calm. Sandra was there with Mr. Edward, looking impeccably dressed. Probably new clothes, lol, and trying to project an aura of wronged victimhood. She even dabbed her eyes a few times when her lawyer was talking about her emotional distress. Her sister Kimberly was in the gallery, glaring daggers at me. Solid support system she's got there. Mr. Edward launched into his spiel. How Sandra was a dedicated mother. How she'd sacrificed her non-existent career for the family. How I was a high-earning executive trying to leave her with nothing. How she needed XXX dollars, an obscene amount a month, just to maintain a semblance of the life the children were accustomed to. He even brought up the damn school trip, painting me as the Grinch. Then it was Miss Dorothy's turn. She was methodical, calm. She laid out my income, my expenses, my proposal for a fair division of assets, and a reasonable, time-limited alimony offer, emphasizing the need for Sandra to become self-sufficient. Mr. Edward scoffed. My client cannot possibly be expected to. Miss Dorothy held up a hand. Your Honor, before we continue discussing Mrs. My last name's alleged financial needs, we have a matter of rather serious concern regarding existing financial resources, specifically funds entrusted for the benefit of the children. You could feel the air change in the room. Sandra, who had been looking rather smug, suddenly went rigid. Her eyes darted to Mr. Edward, then to me, a wave of sheer panic washing over her features, before she quickly tried to compose herself. Too late, the mask had slipped. Ms. Dorothy then, piece by piece, laid out the evidence of the trust fund withdrawals. Bank statements, credit card slips cross-referenced with the withdrawals, dates, amounts, expenditures. The Amour Paris handbag receipt, the spa days, the solo celebratory birthday dinner. She presented enlargements of key documents. It was damning, utterly damning. The judge, a stern-looking woman in her late 50s, leaned forward, her expression growing increasingly grim as Ms. Dorothy detailed each transaction. Mr. Edward was shuffling papers, looking flustered. Sandra went pale, very pale. Ms. Dorothy concluded, "Your Honor, it appears Mrs. My last name Bat has already been accessing significant funds specifically designated for her children's future education, to support the very lifestyle she now claims Mr. My last name is unfairly denying her. Over $18,000 to be precise, from accounts that were meant to secure their higher education." The silence in the courtroom was deafening. The judge stared at Sandra. "Judge, Mrs. My last name, is this true? Did you withdraw these funds from your children's trust accounts for personal use?" Sandra stammered. I always intended to pay it back. There were unforeseen expenses." "Judge, an Amour Paris handbag is an unforeseen educational expense." Her voice was like ice. Mr. Edward tried to jump in. "Your Honor, this is a misunderstanding. My client—" "Mr. Edward, I suggest you consult with your client. This court takes the misappropriation of trust funds, especially those intended for minors, extremely seriously, extremely." She called for a 30-minute recess. As we were leaving the courtroom, my phone buzzed. It was Sandra. "Timothy, please. We need to talk. I can explain. Don't let them do this." Another buzz. "I'm so sorry. I messed up. Please, think of the kids." And another. "Edward is an idiot. I'll drop the alimony demands. Just make this go away. Please." I didn't reply. I just showed the texts to Miss Dorothy. She raised an eyebrow. "Desperate," was all she said. Kimberly tried to approach me in the hallway, face contorted with rage. "You set her up. This is a lie." Ms. Dorothy smoothly stepped between us. "All communication through counsel, please." We are back in the courtroom now. Sandra looks like she's seen a ghost. Mr. Edward is practically sweating. This is it. Final update. The reckoning and the aftermath. Well, it's over. The dust has mostly settled, or at least the legal part of it. The past few months since that courtroom bombshell have been intense. The judge was not amused by Sandra's creative accounting with the kids' trust funds. After the recess, Mr. Edward looked like he'd aged 10 years. He tried some damage control, arguing it was a temporary lapse in judgment, that Sandra was under stress, that she fully intended to repay it. With what money, he didn't specify. The judge wasn't having it. The final ruling was a massacre for Sandra's expectations. Alimony. Slashed. Dramatically. The judge awarded her a very small amount of rehabilitative alimony for only 18 months. The judge explicitly stated that Sandra's demonstrated ability to access and spend significant sums for non-essential purposes, i.e. the stolen trust fund money, indicated she wasn't as destitute as she claimed and had a history of poor financial judgment regarding dedicated funds. Moreover, the judge ordered that a portion of even that minimal alimony be garnished and paid directly back into the children's trust funds until the full $18,000 plus interest was replenished. Ouch. Asset division. The house was ordered to be sold, with proceeds split 50-50 after the trust fund replenishment was accounted for from her share first. Her claims for a larger portion of my retirement were dismissed. Legal fees. Sandra was ordered to pay a significant portion of my legal fees related to uncovering and litigating the trust fund issue, due to her bad faith actions and attempt to conceal assets. Double ouch. Child custody decision-making. While physical custody remained largely the same, kids were old enough to have a say, the judge stipulated that I would have sole legal decision-making authority regarding the children's finances, including education and any future trust disbursements. A clear message. Sandra was, well, frantically texting apologies is an understatement. The moment the judge started reading the decision about the alimony and trust fund repayment, I saw her discreetly trying to text under the table, her face a mask of horror. My phone, which I'd put on silent, lit up multiple times in my pocket. Later, I saw the string of panicked messages. "Timothy, I'll do anything. I'll sign whatever you want. Don't let them ruin me. They're taking everything." Too little, too late. Her sister Kimberly was practically apoplectic outside the courtroom, screaming at Ms. Dorothy that we were destroying a good woman. Ms. Dorothy just calmly suggested Kimberly might want to contribute to Sandra's newfound debt if she was so concerned. That shut her up fast. The aftermath? Sandra had to start selling her designer clothes and handbags. I hear she's been trying to offload some of her more expensive purchases online and at consignment shops to begin making ends meet and start repaying the trust fund. It's an ongoing process. She's living in a much smaller apartment now, a far cry from her previous rental. She had to get an actual job, part-time retail. I hear from mutual acquaintances that she complains constantly about how unfair it all is, how I tricked her. Zero accountability. Some of her old friends have distanced themselves, embarrassed by the whole trust fund scandal. Ashley and Ronald know. I sat them down with Miss Dorothy, who was wonderfully gentle and clear, and explained what happened, focusing on the fact that the money was for their future and that it was now being restored. Ashley cried. Not for her mom, I think, but for the betrayal. She finally understood why I'd been so firm, why I couldn't just give in to her mom's demands. Her texts to me are different now. Apologetic. She asked if she could come live with me full-time. We're working on that. Ronald, in his quiet way, just said, "So Mom was using our school money for stuff?" When I confirmed, he just nodded slowly and said, "That's not right, Dad." "No, son, it's not." The text from Ashley that started this whole chain of thought today was simple. "Dad, I know you love us. Mom was wrong." That's worth more than any legal victory. The revenge wasn't about seeing Sandra suffer, though I won't lie. There's a grim satisfaction in seeing her face the direct consequences of her greed and entitlement. The true win was protecting my kids, securing their future, and clearing my name in their eyes. She tried to use them as pawns and leverage, and it backfired spectacularly because she underestimated my resolve when it came to them. It cost a lot, emotionally and financially, to get here. But looking at Ashley's text, feeling that sense of peace, yeah, it was worth it. Sandra wanted more. She got what she deserved, a hard lesson in consequences. And the kids? They got their father back, unclouded by lies. That's the real justice served.